Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Liam's giving up for Hope's prospects with Carter. As his health declines, Liam Spencer makes the ultimate sacrifice by urging a desperate Hope to make amends with Carter in spite of his own sentiments, guaranteeing her happiness after his departure. Putting Hope into the carrier's arms as his time runs out is Liam's ultimate sacrifice. Liam's startling deeds expose a terrible reality. Fans of soap operas, gather your tissues because the most recent development on The Bold and the Beautiful is causing heartbreak all throughout the country. By forcing the woman he loves into the arms of another man, Liam Spencer is making the ultimate sacrifice while feigning bravery and fighting for his life in secret. The disheartening secret that underlies Liam's actions. Do you recall Liam's brain hemorrhage during his altercation with Bill Spencer? It appears that the situation is even worse than anyone has thought. My insiders tell me that Liam's illness is fatal, and he is actively pushing Hope Logan to make amends with Carter Walton while hiding this heartbreaking information from her. Dr. Grace Buckingham explained his condition using more than just hospital jargon when she said, "Touch and go." Liam is dealing with the heartbreaking fact that his time is running out in the most heartbreaking way possible, by making sure Hope is happy after he leaves. The problem is really complex. Recently, Hope has been clinging to Liam without understanding the true cause of his abrupt change of heart. Though she is unaware that every time she reaches for him, she is shattering his heart once more, she believes they may have another chance at love. A desperate plan with a motive that heartbreaks. Only a few weeks ago, Liam was actively attempting to win Hope back, which is what makes this plot so heartbreaking. Do you recall those times spent with Beth as a family? How did Hope's laughter light up his eyes? That was a dad who wanted his family back, not someone acting. Now, though? Liam is purposefully pushing Hope in the direction of Carter Walton, the one man who might be able to provide her happiness when he leaves, while also making excuses and establishing distance. In yesterday's show, he informed her, "You and Carter had something special," and his voice broke just enough to make me want to cry. Don't discard that because of me. The irony of the drama is killing me. Liam is pushing her away because he loves her too much to let her watch him die, despite Hope's belief that he simply doesn't want her anymore. Steffi is aware of the reality. Prepare yourselves if you thought this could be any more sentimental. Steffi Forrester has all the answers. As she watches her ex-husband's altruistic deed unfold, she struggles with whether to honor his desires or give Hope the truth she deserves. That time when Steffi entered as Liam was taking his prescription? It was all in the way they looked at one another. Despite their disagreements, you can see the anguish in her eyes because she is the only one who is bearing this load with him. Should Steffi betray her word and reveal the truth to Hope? Or should she respect Liam's wishes, regardless of how foolish they may be? This type of impossibility is what makes drama during the day so captivating. Will you be able to find out the truth in time? Will Hope discover what's going on before it's too late? That is the main question that looms large over this plot like a threatening cloud. Will she understand that Liam abruptly changed his mind because he wanted what was best for her, not because he didn't want her? Hope has endured enough trauma to film multiple soap operas. She will be devastated to learn that Liam concealed his illness while pressuring her to approach Carter. But learning about it after he's left? I couldn't stand that. What about Carter? He is obviously still holding a torch for Hope, but what will he think when he learns that he is basically fulfilling Liam's final wish? How complex. Time is running out. Liam's health is getting worse, and Hope is getting closer to Carter every day while being kept in the dark about the true reason for everything. Is Liam making a wise decision? Should he be honest with Hope and let her make her own judgment? Or, despite how tragic it is his sacrifice the ultimate act of selflessness and love? Hope decides to spend Liam's last days with Carter, leaving Carter devastated. In order to concentrate on Liam Spencer's terminal diagnosis, Hope Logan makes the heartbreaking decision to break up with Carter Walton, bringing in a terrible new reality for all those concerned on Bold and Beautiful. As Liam's terminal diagnosis forces a heartbreaking decision, Hope crushes Carter. Life throws the biggest curveball just when you thought Carter Walton and Hope Logan would get back on their feet after the entire company takeover disaster. Any hope of Hope and Carter reconciling has been utterly destroyed by Liam Spencer's terrible terminal diagnosis. According to what I've been told, Carter is utterly devastated. I hope everyone turns their attention to Liam's last days. To be honest, Hope and Carter's relationship was already in shambles when he took the side of the Forresters during that entire business scandal. Recall how Hope was sacked and lost her fashion line after Carter returned the company to the Forresters, leaving her feeling completely deceived. It was still a new wound. Very new. However, Liam's terminal diagnosis completely changed everything just as Carter was making progress in his last-ditch efforts to regain Hope's trust, and my sources tell me he was making progress. Hope experienced a sudden change in herself after Steffi Forrester informed her of Liam's incurable brain tumor. And I don't hold her at all responsible. Falling on deaf ears, Carter's pleas. Carter, poor guy. According to my insiders, he has been pleading with Hope for another opportunity and telling her how much she means to him. But Hope has already made up her mind. Making sure that young Beth gets to spend time with her father in his last days has become her top priority. And truthfully? Wouldn't any mother make the same decision? One said insider told me exclusively that Carter's cries could as well be whispers in a hurricane. Hope is currently hardly able to concentrate on anything but Liam and Beth. It seems as though she no longer sees Carter. This company dispute was the first of all. Remember that after Carter betrayed Hope during the drama of the Forrester takeover, this romance was already on life support. Hope lost everything when Carter gave Ridge and the Forresters back control of the business in March. She lost her fashion line, her job, and her faith in the guy she was falling for. Go have fun with your brother Ridge and your chosen family, and leave me alone. Those iconic words still reverberate. A crisis unites a family. According to production-related sources, Hope's commitment to Liam during this terrible period has been nothing short of remarkable. Hope has set everything aside to provide a nurturing atmosphere for Liam and Beth. Despite their difficult background and all of those love triangles with Steffi, we've all been watching that merry-go-round for years. They've been filming some really heartbreaking scenes, my source revealed. During takes, even the crew has been having trouble staying composed. Heartbroken Carter, what's next? What does this mean for our eternally unlucky in love Carter, given that Hope is adamant about spending Liam's last days with his family? Let's be honest, this man is incapable of finding love. Hope slipping through his fingers after Maya, Zoe, Quinn, and a brief affair, followed by that tumultuous affair with Quinn. Is the man cursed? According to some admirers, Carter may be pushed back into career success by this tragedy, doubling down on his role as COO at Forrester Creations. Others speculate that another Logan sister might be lurking in the background. The emotional collapse persists. One thing is quite evident, everyone's lives are just starting to be affected by the emotional tsunami that Liam's diagnosis caused. Carter is now collateral damage as a result of Hope's decision to concentrate only on Liam and Beth during this terrible moment. Will Carter ultimately come to terms with Hope's choice and move on? Or will he keep battling for the woman he loves in the hopes that, after everything is said and done, she will once more make room in her heart for him? All I can be certain of is that as this heartbreaking tale progresses, tears are streaming both on and off screen. Fans of soap operas, stay tuned, this emotional roller coaster is only beginning. Carter claims to love Hope, yet he won't turn Daphne away. Carter Walton of B&B, who claims to adore Hope Logan, keeps allowing Daphne Rose to pursue him. When he doesn't stop Daphne's advances or stand up for Hope when she is criticized, many start to doubt his motives. Brilliant and elegant bombshell, Carter plays with fire as Hope waits and Daphne circles. Is Carter Walton still open-minded? After seeing his perplexing conduct in Wednesday's episode, people are wondering that. Carter did virtually nothing to stop Daphne Rose's most recent advances, even though he claimed to be fighting for Hope Logan's heart. During that scene, I almost fell off my couch, let me tell you. Carter was aggressively informed by Daphne that he should move on, with her, of course, because his relationship with Hope had come and gone. What did our alleged infatuated Carter do? Without voicing any objections, he simply stood there and listened. The strange silence of the Carter speaks volumes. Carter's unwillingness to set firm boundaries with Daphne is a major red signal for a man who has been essentially pleading with Hope for another opportunity. In addition to failing to stop her pursuit, he allowed her to disparage Hope without standing up for her. One fan commented on social media, if Carter truly loved Hope, he wouldn't allow Daphne to undermine her without confronting Daphne. And truthfully? I completely agree. We had previously witnessed Carter vacillating between women. Do you recall his liaison with Quinn during his engagement to Zoe? Or how soon after that he asked Paris to marry him? We're seeing the real-time manifestation of the reason why this man hasn't been able to maintain any relationships. The Steffi relationship. The fact that Daphne is more than simply a random perfumer who happened to attract Carter's attention adds even more intrigue to the whole issue. According to my trustworthy sources, Steffi Forrester brought Daphne on board especially to cause friction between Carter and Hope following their contentious acquisition of Forrester Creations. And it's functioning. Daphne has been unrelenting in her perseverance. She is always there to compliment Carter, undermine Hope, and establish herself as the superior choice. The fact that Katie Logan evidently found out Daphne was Steffi's plant weeks ago and hasn't bothered to notify Carter is mind-blowing. What's that about? Does she love the show too much to stop it? Or is she remaining quiet for personal reasons? Heartache of Hope. Hope is coping with more than just relationship stress while Carter is engaged in this risky game. Liam Spencer is emotionally weak as a result of her health problems, which makes Carter's ambivalent attitude all the more frightening. Not to mention that Hope took a huge chance on Carter following the breakup of her marriage to Liam. Together, they have survived familial disapproval and business takeovers. And he rewards her back for her loyalty like this? By allowing Daphne to approach her behind her back? Spending time alone with a stunning woman is one thing. Watching in silence as that woman makes fun of the person you say you love? That is rudeness on a whole other level. Fans don't have it. Regarding Carter's actions, the B&B fan base is polarized. He is being given the benefit of the doubt by some, who believe he is either being kind or attempting to avoid causing drama at work. One spectator remarked, he keeps talking about Hope. But give her credit, she's tenacious. However, some people don't accept the justifications. Another admirer wrote, I'm not surprised that Carter is so unreliable and evasive. The man hasn't been in a successful, long-term relationship for a reason. It has frequently been compared to Ridge Forrester's notorious waffling between women. Like a protege, like a mentor? That's how it appears. Future plans for this triangle? Will Daphne's attempt to woo Carter ultimately be successful? According to one fan, she is relentless, so it's unavoidable. She will also be successful. I'm not entirely sure. Carter appears to be genuinely conflicted, even though he may be playing a risky game. Whether Hope will realize what has been going on before it's too late is the true question. Not to be overlooked is Steffi's endgame. What will happen to Forrester Creations if her scheme succeeds and Carter develops feelings for Daphne? Can Steffi take back control of the business? This love triangle is made much more intense by the corporate stakes. There is no denying that Carter cannot have it both ways indefinitely. He will eventually have to make a decision. And according to his history, that decision could end up blowing everyone away. Time had never pressed so tightly against Hope Logan's chest, suffocating in its hurry but brimming with a furious clarity that only comes after all illusions have been dispelled. Something changed inside of her forever the minute she found out about Liam's illness, that he was terminal, that the guy she had loved, lost, and found again was disappearing before her eyes. Every previous betrayal, miscommunication, competition with Steffi, and lingering pain from his father's machinations vanished into the background. Now, this was all that mattered. Liam was dying, and she would not let him go without respecting the love that had defined her in spite of everything. She was unconcerned about public opinion, timing, appropriateness, or the complexities of Carter's developing feelings for her. Dear Carter, you had been a shelter during the storm, warm, steady, and compassionate. He wasn't Liam, though. Not right now. Never. And with all the courage her heart could muster, Hope decided to marry Liam in the midst of the rawness of her grief and resolve. Don't wait. No lengthy goodbyes. One final promise that he would keep with him, one last thread to a love that, despite its many bendings, never really snapped. She stood in the doorway for a time, memorizing Liam's silhouette as the sun was setting in golden slashes across his pale skin when she entered the hospital room that afternoon. She reflected on how different this moment seemed compared to all the times she had stood at a threshold like this, both after Beth's homecoming and after their several breakups. Now there was no hesitancy, no rage. Just love, urgent and fierce. With a weary, sardonic grin, Liam looked up. He could feel the resolution behind the tears, the fire in her gaze. Furthermore, she didn't seek for permission when she sat next to him and took his hand in hers. She spoke without faltering. I want to marry you, Liam, she stated plainly and unambiguously. How long we have left doesn't matter to me. I'd like to be your wife once more. He looked like the man she remembered, the man she had repeatedly trusted with her heart despite all the reasons not to, and for the first time in weeks, his eyes welled up. Let me do this with you. However, the ever-protective Liam faltered. As he informed her that she deserved more and that she didn't have to bind herself to a man who was already halfway gone, his lips quivered. He attempted to dissuade her by pointing out the potential suffering and the injustice of severing her future when she still had hope for happiness. And Hope interrupted him, not in a mean way, but firmly, when he said Carter's name. She said, Carter can wait. He is wonderful and kind. However, I don't love him as much as I love you. The weight of her own candor caused her voice to break. I need you to know that. Carter provided solace. Love was Liam. That distinction was now as sharp as a sword after being buried for years by emotional weariness. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against Liam's while he slowly shook his head, restraining himself from the emotion that was stuck in his throat. Please, let me have this with you, she muttered. Let's complete the task at hand. I want you to know that you will always be my first choice. There was a flurry of reactions as word got out among the Spencers and Forresters. Concerned about the toll it would have on Hope, Brooke, who was fiercely protective, didn't press after seeing the conviction in her daughter's eyes. Surprisingly, Steffi provided silent support, realizing all too well that love wasn't always logical, sometimes it was essential. Carter, for his part, watched the woman he had come to love leave a possible future with him in search of a resolution that only Liam could provide her, and he did so with dignity and obvious sadness. It wasn't simple. He had provided light throughout Hope's darkest hours. However, even he was aware that the Liam sort of love didn't diminish simply because someone else entered the picture. Hope came to him in private, appreciative and kind, and as the agony flashed behind Carter's eyes, he nodded and gave her a silent blessing before fading into the background of her life. Carter informed her, even though you didn't say it aloud, he was your first choice. You should be allowed to complete this story as you see fit. Preparations started for a sacred gathering of love and mourning rather than a lavish wedding or show. A few family members and close friends, a little garden, and the kids in white. With Thomas's assistance, Liam arose, brittle but resolute, and watched as Hope approached him, her eyes glimmering with unshed tears and her plain gown. Long speeches and extravagant declarations were absent. There were only hushed promises and tightly gripped hands, as though they could stop time with pure willpower. And they did in that brief instant. Hope remarried Liam, not because she was gullible or held on to a fantasy, but because she understood that love doesn't always have to last forever. Love sometimes needs right now. Following the ceremony, each day was a gift wrapped in elegance and grief. As Liam's strength diminished, Hope remained at his side, but his spirit remained unwavering. They grieved, laughed, and conversed. She read to him. What was remained of his hurting spirit was warmed by the sound of Beth's laughing coming from the adjacent room. Hope would take his hand and press it to her cheek during the silent hours, learning its weight, the form of his fingers, and the pulse that grew progressively thinner every day. And since she had made the correct decision, the peace remained with her even though the pain never did. She had loved him completely, fearlessly, and without hesitation. Hope was there, nestled up next to Liam, whispering their vows again the day he passed away. She thanked him for loving her even when she didn't feel deserving, kissed his forehead, and said she had no regrets about leaving him. Although it was broken, her heart did not break. Because she had written her own redemption when she decided to marry him, to offer him that happiness and dignity in his last chapter. What about Carter? In order to respect Hope's need for time, he remained silent and respectful while keeping watch from the wings. She could be prepared to let her heart open once more in the future. She could only remember, breathe, and recover for the time being. Liam had left. However, their unadulterated, genuine, and boldly brief love was eternal. With an odd mix of confidence and desperation glimmering in his eyes, Carter Walton stood by himself in the CEO office of Forrester, gazing out at the skyline of Los Angeles. The man who cleaned up after everyone else's emotional mess and the silent spectator who had watched for too long as love transformed individuals into unrecognizable versions of themselves, he had always been the steady, reliable one. However, he was the one experiencing a tidal wave of emotion for the first time in what seemed like an eternity, teetering between dedication and delusion, and he was prepared to do something unimaginable. He was going to seek assistance with Hope Logan from Ridge Forrester, Ridge. It was no longer solely about love. Under the garb of good intentions, it was obsession. With the kind of unwavering conviction that only someone who is blinded by yearning can have, Carter thought he was the only guy who could save Hope, who was drowning in his mind between her dying husband and the demands that were placed on her from all sides. Not momentarily, not emotionally, but deeply. His appeal to Ridge didn't seem ridiculous to him. For him, it was fate. Ridge was, after all, her stepfather and, in many respects, her protector. Ridge might be able to steer Hope in the right direction if he could only see what Carter saw, which was that Liam's hold on her was based on the past rather than the future. Perhaps Ridge would acknowledge at last that Hope needed something fresh, something substantial. Carter, perhaps. With the same composed elegance that he brought to a courtroom, Carter began his pitch. However, this was not a legal argument, rather, it was a heart exposed in the most embarrassing and humiliating way possible. As Carter presented his argument, Ridge listened with his arms folded and his eyes narrowed. He discussed Hope's vulnerability as well as her courage and fortitude. He said that Liam's deterioration was impairing her judgment and keeping her bound to a phase that had to come to an end. Carter stated sincerely, "I hope she doesn't know what she needs right now, Ridge. However, I do. I have the ability to provide her with the future she needs. She is caught up in a tornado of obligation and grief and isn't thinking properly. However, love ought to transcend duty, doesn't it?" Ridge could barely believe what he was hearing, but the words were passionate but tone-deaf. She deserves more than to just fade into the shadow of a dying man's last wish. Obsession was nothing new to him. On several occasions, he had been at the center of it. However, this? There was more to this. Ever the lion to defend those he loved, Ridge flinched from Carter's suggestion as if it were poison. "You want me to persuade Hope to stop pursuing Liam? To jump ahead in time in her pain and simply fall into your arms as if it were a rebound fantasy?" Ridge's voice was piercing and tinged with incredulity. Carter's expression dimmed a little, but he remained firm. He retorted, "I'm not saying she should forget Liam. I'm arguing that she ought to be given the opportunity to see past the suffering. And perhaps I can assist her in doing so." Ridge was undecided about whether to punch a wall or laugh. Here was Carter, the dependable confidant, abruptly altering the facts to support a story in which he saved Hope. In which Ridge acted as a matchmaker. Where love could be rationally transferred like a court settlement, and sadness had an expiration date. However, underlying Ridge's incredulity was another emotion, worry. For Carter as well as for Hope. Ridge didn't know this man. This person was whirling and lost. Hope wasn't the only focus, Carter was also attempting to understand his own loneliness. Quinn, Katie, and almost every other woman he had ever dared to envision a future with had all burnt him. Now that Hope was enmeshed in the psychological devastation caused by Liam's fatal illness, Carter noticed what appeared to be an open door. An opportunity. A cause. Ridge was familiar with that type of desperation. Too well. Ridge was unable to entertain it, though. Finally, in a stern but kind voice, he remarked, "Hope isn't yours to fix, Carter. And Liam is her spouse, whatever of your opinion of him. He's dying. You will back off if you truly care about her. Carter was already too far gone, but you'll let her choose what she needs rather than forcing your idea on her like a present." In his thinking, Hope was about to realize that Liam's last days shouldn't keep her stuck in grief indefinitely. That her future was not something she owed anyone. And the more Ridge resisted, the more certain Carter was that he was correct and that everyone else was still blind to it. Later, unable to believe how quickly Ridge had brushed him aside, Carter found himself playing the exchange again. It didn't feel like a rejection to him. He perceived it as fear that Hope may, in fact, decide on someone better or something different. Ridge wasn't at fault. When their meticulously crafted circles were shattered, the Forresters never liked it. This time, however, Carter resisted being pushed to the sidelines. He would demonstrate to Hope that life went on after Liam. And he would do it on his own if Ridge refused to assist him. Hope, meantime, was preoccupied with Liam's care and was not aware of Carter's request. She listened to recordings of the waves lapping against the Malibu shore, read him their daughter's artwork, and slept in chairs next to him. She previously believed she had lost the man forever, but now she knew she was going to lose him again, and her world was getting smaller and smaller every day. She had no space for Carter's delicate hovering, his silent looks, or his loves. Nevertheless, Carter stayed close by, always expecting to catch her. And his optimism, that hope, was becoming something perilous. Carter was fooling himself into believing that his love gave him the right to substitute someone else's, not because he was cruel. When Brooke finally learned about Carter's plea to Ridge, the consequences quickly became apparent. Her voice was low and full of caustic incredulity as she faced Carter with a ferocity he hadn't expected. She spit out, "How dare you try to coerce Ridge into bringing Hope to you when she's in mourning? What you really are is opportunistic, but you think you're some noble alternative." Perhaps Carter recognized it at that precise time. Only a peek. How his emotions had overshadowed his judgment. How unbridled affection can turn into entitlement. For the first time, Carter took a step back, but this time it was out of self-awareness rather than defeat. Carter was unsure of what was ahead for him and Hope, but Ridge's words stuck with him, "If she chooses you, let it be because she wants you, not because you were the only one standing when the dust settled." Perhaps nothing. Perhaps one day. However, he realized that approaching Ridge for assistance had not been a romantic move. A man who didn't want to be alone any longer had made the desperate decision.